Hello, welcome back.
Hello, welcome.
Welcome back to episode number 22 of Living Richly with Curo. We're so happy to have you back for another week of interesting financial topics. And my name is Anne McCabe. I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo Private Wealth. And I'm joined as always by my awesome partner, Atrisa.
Hi there. I'm Atrisa Roberts, COO and partner of Curo Private Wealth. We're so glad that you joined us.
Yes, we may or may not have had a little dance party right before we hit record. Just saying. We're in that kind of mood today.
Yeah. Need a little amping up.
We needed a little pump up music. So check that box. It's amazing what music can do for your soul and just your mood.
Yeah, even when I'm working out, like if I'm going on a run or doing like a difficult workout, it's hard for me to do it without music like in my ear. It's something about it that takes me to a place that allows me to push through it. It's weird, but yeah, I completely agree. Music can just shift the mood and the dynamic in a very powerful way.
Yes, for sure. I've never understood. There are some marathons, I believe, and even half marathons where they don't allow people to listen to music because it's like not serious enough. I mean, I'm not doing a marathon anyway, let's be honest. But
Yeah. Yeah.
if I was thinking about it, it would definitely be one where I would be allowed to listen to music, just for the
Yeah,
record,
have to have it. Have to have it.
for sure. All right. So today's episode topic is about reverse mortgages. This is a topic that I think there's so much information online about reverse mortgages. So we thought it would be helpful as certified financial planners to give our perspective on reverse mortgages, share a little bit about what they are, how they work, the pros, the cons, as we like to approach these sorts of decisions. But before we get into that topic, let's do a little A team catch up. I missed you. You were traveling last week. So I'm
I
dying to
know.
hear about that or anything else you want to share about what's going on.
Yeah, no, it was a good time. I went down to Austin for what's called the G2 Successor Academy. So it's a program, I mean, of course, what you've done, that you completed, but it's targeted at sort of the next generation of financial firms leadership and helping prepare us for all things practice management. So it feels almost like an MBA course in learning about organizational culture and compensation packages and all things that you just have to consider as a manager and leader. So again, it's only about a day and a half, but it's crammed packed with so much information. Everything about it is super helpful and beneficial. And I'm always jotting down these ideas. I'm like, oh, Ann and I have to do this. Ann and I are, Ann and I are going to do that. And it can be a little bit overwhelming. So it's about taking it in bite-sized pieces and figuring out how we can do the small tweaks and not come back and be like, we have to do a wholesale revamp of our
Yeah.
entire process, which is kind of how I feel sometimes when I leave. But always
Yeah.
a very good educational experience. Also, really nice to network with other leaders who are in similar situations. Always idea sharing. We give each other help around what we're doing with clients and what we're doing with our team. And so coming away with all of those little nuggets are always very valuable as well. But it was a good time, a good week. And the weather was nice in Austin. It wasn't super hot, which I was hesitant about because the weather was so nice here. When I left the DC
Yeah.
area, I'm like, oh, it's going to be scorching in Austin. But no, the weather was friendly. It was nice. So it was a good sort of day and a half.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Shout out to Philip Palaviv, who runs that G2
Yeah.
program. He is just like a walking encyclopedia. I mean, that man has read more books and knows more things that he could just like pull out of his head. So he's fantastic. And as you said, one of the big benefits of that program is the networking as well, and just idea
Hmm.
sharing and experience sharing. And yeah, I always called it an MBA for RAs. And for those of you who may not be aware of what an RIA stands for, that's registered investment advisor. So these are like independent financial advisory practices. So an MBA for independent advisors, basically. But yeah, I'm so thrilled that you're going through the program and bring the ideas, having like a laundry list of all the things, and then we can just, you
Right.
know, chip away at them as we go.
As we go. Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
what's new with you, my dear?
My new update is I did Pilates for I'm gonna say the first time because I did a couple reformer classes probably over a decade ago, and then I stopped
Okay.
because the instructor left. So I'm pretty much a complete newbie with Pilates. So I decided to go with my sister-in-law to a Pilates reformer class, and I loved it. And I think that this is going to be a lovely balance to all the weightlifting and things that I do, but you still are
Hmm.
getting a workout. So it's like part strength, part stretching, and just a very different sort of routine than I normally do. So, with my kid schedule and work schedule and things like that, I'm probably only going to be able to do it a couple times a month. That's my goal. But I'm really excited for just and a new challenge, new neural pathways that are going to be built in my
Right.
brain as I learn Pilates. That's my new and exciting.
No, but that is exciting. I'll admit I am terrified of the reformer when I see people doing the workouts, when I see the videos on like Instagram or online. I'm like, that looks painful. But I can only imagine how good it is for your body with just that amount of stretching and control and core stability. So I see the value in it. But let me know how it goes. If you're still in love with it in 6 months, then maybe I can try it out next year.
All right, that sounds good. You have yourself a deal. All right. So let's get into our topic of today, reverse mortgages. And why don't we kick off just as a baseline with explaining what is a reverse mortgage?
Mhm.
Because again, I think there is so much information out there, or certainly lots of horror stories. If you look
Yeah.
online about reverse mortgages, or if you've spoken with someone who's had an experience with a reverse mortgage. So let's just define what is a reverse mortgage. So do you want to kick us off, Teresa, with the definition of a reverse mortgage?
Sure. So a reverse mortgage, and sometimes I think the name of it can also be a little misleading when people think of traditionally the way mortgages work, but it is a loan available to homeowners. The traditional loan that we think of has specific age requirements. So it's specifically available to those who are ages 62 and up. And what it allows you to do is tap into the equity of your home and turn that into cash without having to sell your house or leave the property or make monthly mortgage payments. So in a traditional mortgage where you are making a purchase up front and then paying down a loan balance over time, a reverse mortgage is exactly what it sounds like, and it works in the opposite way. So you're essentially taking a loan upfront in some way, and then that balance is actually going up over time because interest and fees and those kind of things are being added to your balance. So that's the thing to remember about it as well. It's not like a mortgage payment where you're chipping away at a debt balance. As the loan progresses, you're actually seeing that loan balance grow. So we use the name mortgage, which can be a little bit misleading, but they work in different ways in the way the actual debt service works.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And can you talk a little bit too about the different ways that people can get money?
There's typically multiple options. So, of course, there is a lump sum option where you can just take a lump sum loan from the equity in your home. You can also set up monthly payments that you typically do in some equal payment amount over a certain period of time. You can do it in more of an annuity type fashion where you draw income for the remainder of the borrower's life. And then there's the other options where you treat it more traditionally, like how we think of a home equity line of credit, where there's an available line, a loan balance or a line of credit that you can tap into as needed, where you're not just committing to a certain amount of income over a certain period of time. So there are different ways typically that you're allowed access to this money when you do, if you do decide to go down the road of reverse mortgage.
Yeah. And one thing to be aware of, as you said, Teresa, is the interest and the fees start accumulating when you pull the money out. And so we'll talk in a moment about pros and cons, as that's the way we always like to approach these sorts of decisions. But one of the things to be very careful about is that lump sum decision. So in most
Mhm.
cases, if you do decide to go down this path, probably tapping the funds as you need them may be a smarter option because then you're only paying that interest or the interest and fees are only accumulating on that balance as you are tapping the funds.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had some experience in real life with clients with reverse mortgages. And I did have a situation where the client opted for an annuity stream of income and then got to a place where they didn't need as much income anymore, but they were tied to
Yeah.
having to continue the monthly payments and growing that balance over time. So I think the line of credit just gives you more flexibility so that you can take it when and as needed.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So let's talk pros and cons. And
Mhm.
this is maybe obvious, but a pro to a reverse mortgage is if you find yourself in a situation where you have a lot of equity, you don't have a mortgage, or you have a very small mortgage on your home and you need access to cash, but you don't want to sell your home, then a reverse mortgage could give you that ability to access some of the equity, especially if you find yourself in a situation where you need income, you're strapped for cash, etc. So this does allow you to stay in your home and it allows you to access that equity. And that can really be a game changer for folks who do find themselves for whatever reason in this sort of situation. And then, of course, you don't have monthly payments like you normally do with a traditional mortgage. Last thing you want if you're already strapped for cash, tight cash flow is already tight. Last thing you want
Right.
is to add something in addition to your cash flow. So for the right situation, it can make sense. We try not to approach things in such black and white terms as in you should never do this or you should always do this. We're very much trying to assess the situation on a case by case basis, depending upon, our client situation, and pros and cons and what they're trying to do. But that's really, those are really the only pros as we see it. To the flip side of that coin, talking about cons, we would encourage people to go into this decision eyes wide open and just to be very aware of some of the risks and some of the cons. So, what are some of the cons as we see them?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is the one we've already mentioned a little bit, and that's that your loan balance is going to increase over time, and that increase in balance is going to chip away at the equity in your home, right? The amount of equity remaining in your home is going to be reduced as you start to draw on that income on the loan balance. So I think that's one of the biggest cons to remember. Another one is that once you vacate the home, so that could either be moving out of it, because one of the stipulations of a reverse mortgage is that you have to use it at the home as your principal residence. So it's not just, oh, we passed away. If for whatever reason you vacate the home, you decide to move, you decide to sell it, or something happens and one of the borrowers passes away, then that loan does come due. So you have to think about that too from an estate planning perspective or even from a future planning perspective. So if it's not your intent to stay in the house, if it's not your forever home, and there are chances that you might be selling the home or relocating, then you have to remember that that loan cannot continue if it is not your principal residence. So the entire balance will become due at that time, which are two really big considerations for deciding to go down this road.
And then, of course, there are lots of fees. And we're used to dealing with fees in any sort of mortgage or loan transaction. But if you compare a traditional mortgage fees to a reverse mortgage fees, generally speaking, I think it's fair to
Mm.
say that the reverse mortgage fees are higher. So there is the origination fee, there's third party closing costs. You actually have to have mortgage insurance. Both you have to pay for that at closing and then also monthly for the life of the mortgage. And then there could be a servicing fee and, of course, the interest expense. So we're talking about more layers, greater layers of fees that than we're used to dealing with when it comes to a traditional mortgage. I think the other thing to be really aware of is if you take a reverse mortgage, you are still responsible for paying the property taxes, paying the insurance. And also, one of the stipulations is you have to keep the house in good condition, quote unquote, good
Mhm.
condition. And this makes logical sense because if the bank is loaning you money and will get paid back when you sell the house, and then your home is in shambles, that is going to affect the bank's investment. And so it makes sense. But as you read through some of the, horror stories, and I don't
Yeah.
personally have any clients who have dealt with one of these horror stories, but I have read about them. And as you read through them, in a lot of cases, it's either the person left the home, it's not their primary residence anymore, as you said, or the bank thought they left the home, or in some cases, it's the homeowner aged and wasn't able to keep up
Mm.
properly with the maintenance of the home. And so, the home was foreclosed on and these people find themselves homeless. So those are some of the kind of very scary
Yeah.
horror stories you read about, but it is super critical to understand that that is still your responsibility to maintain all those other expenses, and if you don't, then they can foreclose on your home, and at that point the loan, including interest and fees, is due.
Yeah. And I think when reverse mortgages first started to gain popularity, I'd probably say it's probably been maybe 10 years ago when you first started hearing about them, because it's a product targeted specifically at seniors. It became ripe for scams, for people being taken advantage of, being convinced to take reverse mortgages to pay for construction things on their home. So I think they've had a bad reputation because of that, because it left seniors in a place where they were vulnerable when they were strapped for cash during retirement, and then sort of got cheated out of their money, cheated out of their homes by people who look to take advantage of that. So it's also something to be very concerned about, right? If you do decide that this might be an option. Now, I do think like the FHA and HUD have like put some stipulations in place to try to protect people in those instances. But it is
Yes.
an area where people, especially seniors, can be taken advantage of and manipulated. So you want to make sure that you're seeking counsel from someone, an advisor, an attorney, other family members, before you decide to just go forward with the reverse mortgage through, a company that's offering it to you.
Yeah, I think that's critical. Your financial advisors, whether that is your accountant, your actual financial planner, but also assuming you have a good relationship with family members or you have a
Right.
trusted friend who you can discuss this with. Yeah, it's one of those very big decisions that you probably should not go at alone. And you should, just check in with some key trusted folks in your life to see, am I crazy? Does this make sense? Are there other options? Other options that I should be considering? Because I think, generally speaking, our view is this can make sense, but it probably should
Hmm.
not be plan A, right?
Right.
Hopefully we've done different planning and this is maybe option C, D, or E, but not option A.
Right. Yeah, I think it fits. And like you said, we don't speak in absolutes. We would never say never, or
Hmm.
ever say always. But again, and I'll give one example of a case that we had some years ago where I thought it might actually be a good fit. It was a situation where it was a female client. She had never been married, never had children. She was in her late 70s. All of the beneficiaries of her estate were her siblings who were her age or older. And she was strapped for income during retirement. Social Security wasn't quite meeting the need. And she was not healthy enough to even do any sort of a part time work. In that case, because her home met the qualifications, and there are some background qualifications where your home can't be older than a certain, can't be built before a certain year, but her home met the qualifications. And we thought that it might be a good option for her to explore a line of credit through reverse mortgage, specifically because she didn't know anything on the house. There was no other existing mortgage, but then there also wasn't a concern about wanting to pass the home to, beneficiaries through the estate. So she really, didn't care if her brothers or sisters, right, got to sell the house, and it could have been a good fit for her in that very specific case. But I think that's where it comes down to. It's about talking through all of the options and all of the concerns to see if it's something that makes sense for you on a case by case basis.
Yeah. Did she go through with it?
She did not. She didn't go through with it. And it was because, again, about the reputation of reverse mortgages. And she was like, I feel like it just doesn't make sense. It was almost to her like this is a too good to be true kind of thing. Like they're just going to give me this money. And
Mm,
we tried to explain to her that they're not just giving it to you, right? It's not free money.
right.
But yeah, so she never got comfortable. And I think it was just about that sort of reputation of, taking advantage of senior people. So she decided not to move forward with it. But that was one case where I thought this could actually be a good solution, right, for this specific client in this specific situation. So,
Yeah, like if there's one person
right,
mm,
right, who this
who
would
we've worked
actually work for. Right, it's her, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, see, there are cases, in which it
Mhm.
could potentially make sense, but just tread very cautiously would be our message, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
awesome.
to the point about having conversations with families, I also think it is important that, especially if you're of senior age and you have children who plan to inherit something from you, I think it is a good idea to have a conversation with them about the decision to do this because they have to understand that once you're no longer here, that loan has to be paid back. And in most people, they consider, oh, we'll just sell the home. But you want to make sure that your heirs understand that, right? Like there is this debt tied to the house that they may see as a part of their inheritance. So you just want to make sure
Right.
those kind of things are clear so things don't come as a surprise to your heirs, should you pass away while you're still living in the home with this reverse mortgage.
Yeah, there's also stories that you read online about
Mhm.
people doing this kind of behind their kids' backs, and their kids have no idea, and all of
Yeah,
a
and they
sudden they're
don't
like, "Wait,
discover it,
what?"
right? And they don't discover it until the probate
Yeah,
process, right? And they discover that this
exactly.
exists. Yeah.
Yeah, like, "This is our family home. We thought we would be inheriting our family home, and now it's not."
Yeah.
So, yeah, very
Yeah.
important to loop in family, assuming you've got a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that wraps the pros and cons of reverse mortgages. Hopefully, we've given you some general education around them, and some ways of how we approach the decision as
Mhm.
financial planners. So now it is time for our closing thought. Do you want me to go first, since I always put you on the spot?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. My closing thought is, it is September, almost October, which means, depending on where you find yourself in the country, limited amounts of time to spend outside with nice weather. And so, my closing thought is for us all to spend as much time outside as we possibly can until it starts to get very cold. And also, I've already noticed how much quicker in the evening it's getting darker. Like
Yes.
right after dinner last night, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's already dark."
Mhm.
We've been in the habit of going for post-dinner walks, which has been lovely, but it's already dark now. But the reason I share this is, I was in probably the worst mood I've been in a long time on Sunday. I was, like, in this funk, and my kids and I decided to go outside, and when I tell you, Teresa, the second I walked into the fresh
Mhm.
air and there was sunshine on Sunday in our area, it was honestly like someone had given me, something to improve my mood immediately. It was
Yeah.
unreal. Unreal. And you hear this and this, people say, like, yeah, if you're in a bad mood or you're feeling down, like, go outside, get fresh air, get sunshine, go for a walk. But it was like unbelievable to me how quickly it made me feel better. So that is my closing thought. Let's spend as much time outside as we possibly can until all of us are going to freeze outside.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, but that's a really good idea. And there are times, even in the office, when I'm super busy and just going from one Zoom meeting to the next, right? And you get to a place where it's like, okay, wait, I got to step outside and I just got to take a deep breath of fresh air and feel the sun on my face. And it kind of helps recharge just a little bit, right? Like charge you up a little bit. So that's great that you were able to shift your own mood just, by taking a quick little walk.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be 30 minutes. I mean, even, like,
Yeah.
going outside for 5 minutes makes a huge difference. So it doesn't need to be this massive time commitment, especially as we're all busy going from one thing to the next, but it made such a big difference.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's especially good reminder as we go into like darker, colder season where some people struggle with seasonal depression. So when you
Yes.
have that opportunity to get outside and get some sun, absolutely take advantage of it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Yeah. It's actually something that I picked up last week in Austin. One of the speakers, Stacy, shared this idea about living above the line and below the line. And basically, she shared a YouTube video. So there is some content out there about it. But basically, what it says is that people who often find themselves either in a mood or in an attitude or in a space where they're below the line. It's usually people where they feel defensive or that they're always guarded. They consider everything an attack, everything feels like a personal offense. it limits the amount of imagination and amount of creativity, right? It's that space of living below the line. And then there are times when, or people who often live above the line, where they are open and they see critiques as feedback, things to take in and improve. And it opens up their imagination and their creativity, and they want to explore and they want to learn more. So they've implemented this thing on Stacy's team where every day they start out and everybody shares, am I having a BTL day or an ATL day, right? How am I feeling? Am I below the line or am I above the line? Just so they know kind of where everybody is from an attitude perspective. And that really struck me because it makes sense. Like on the days when I'm feeling below the line, it's because for some reason I feel in a defensive posture, or I'm really tired, or something happened and I took it personally, right? So I guess my closing thought is to maybe think about your mood and your attitude and your spirit on a day to day basis, and check in with yourself and ask, am I living above the line or below the line today? And if you can find ways to shift it, right? If you have been below the line, you don't want to be there anymore, maybe go for a walk, get some fresh air, figure out what you have to do to shift that energy so you can go into an above the line space, because that's where we typically are our healthiest and happiest. So,
I love that. Maybe we implement that in our weekly team meeting. We just do a quick check
yeah.
in with everybody. See how everyone's
Yeah.
feeling on a Monday.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love
So I want to make a conscious effort to try to be above the line as often as possible.
Yeah, and I think it tracking that would be interesting, right? Like even just making a note
Hmm.
on your daily list or whatever, just to kind of see how many days, because obviously you're not going to be above the line 100% of the time. Shout out Stacy McKinnon, she's amazing. We love her too. Part of that G2 program with Philip as well. So, thank you again for tuning in to another episode. This is our weekly reminder for you to please send us your questions to podcast@curoprivatewealth.com. If we answer one of your questions on air, we will send you an Amazon gift card as a thank you. And please share this episode. Maybe share it with a parent of yours. Would be a good idea, and give us a review. Let us know what you enjoyed about the podcast. A 5-star rating, please. That will help other people find us. And again, we're just so grateful that you decide to spend some of your time with us every week. It is a pleasure. And we will see you here again next week.
Same bet time, same bet channel.
Yes, ma'am. Take care. Ciao for now.
Take care. Live rich.